This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we look back at the first weekend of the season for the Bates winter sports teams. Plus, Katherine Cook became the 5th women's cross-country All-American in school history. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. Senior captain Katherine Cook competed at the NCAA cross-country championships on Saturday and finished 16th out of 279 runners, earning her first career All-America honor. Cook is the female Bobcat of the week for the second straight week, and although the students are on break, we caught up with head coach Jay Hartshorn, who made the trip with Cook to suburban St. Louis.
Yeah, I think she had a really good attitude going in, and I tried to also have a really good attitude going in. You had to sort of compartmentalize and say, yeah, it was very disappointing our team didn't get in, but she had this really great opportunity, and she's worked really hard and improved a lot. And last year was sort of the only, at NCAA's, only time she didn't really run great because she was sick going into that, so it wasn't the experience that she wanted. So we really tried to keep not making it as a team and her making it as individuals, like two really separate things. And we talked about it very little, of course, once we got out there and just were sort of focusing ahead on what she needed to do.
What was your message to the team after even the disappointing news?
I spent a long time on writing them this big email, and they all said that was great. It was perfect. I mean, not they all said, but they felt pretty good about whatever I said. I'd have to go back and read it, but it's just sort of this a weird system that's not very transparent, so I can sort of guess why we didn't get in. The guess doesn't really make me feel any better. But I know they all really understood that they deserve to be out there. One thing that I got when I was out there was just a lot of coaches being like, I can't believe you guys didn't get selected. And they weren't just coaches that were in New England. They were really coaches all over the country. So in some ways, we were the team that was talked about a ton, but we weren't even there. And so we just really tried to focus, obviously, on what Katherine had to do. And then we had just a lot of fun also exploring St. Louis that neither of us had been to.
Sure. And so during the actual race, did you go to the finish line and kind of wait there?
It was a pretty good spectator course. It was a different course than I have seen because the start was probably about 200 meters on a very significant uphill, and you don't see cross-country courses like that. And there was also a cold front that came through that we were expecting it, but about 45 minutes before the women's race started, it just got incredibly cold, incredibly windy, and drizzly. And so it all of a sudden was like, oh man, this is a tough day to run cross country. And it was a really, really tough course. There's so many people just watching the course, just mobs and mobs of people just watching the race and out there. So I probably saw her 6 times, which was pretty good. And then certainly I hardly ever on cross country races make it to the end because I'm like, well, the end doesn't matter. I'd rather be 400 meters out, 600 meters out. But this time I certainly did go the end because I just really want to know, how'd she finish? I want to see it. That's sort of part of what this race is all about.
And I don't know about your expectations for coming in for her. Did she, obviously All-American, that's great. About what you expected, even better, perhaps?
Yeah, the first goal was to be All-American, but we didn't talk about this part, but I was to me, that wouldn't have quite felt enough for her. So we had sort of settled on top 20. And she ran a lot of the race sort of in that 10, 11, 12 and, sort of got beat by some kids just really in the last 400 meters. There were just a huge pack of them. And so someone's going to be in the front of that pack. Someone's going to be, someone's going to be towards the end. But that was definitely her crew, sort of the 11 to 17 for most of the race. What's helpful is that there's so many good kids that are in our conference that we've seen, and she saw them out there, and they all had good races. So it was really easy, I think, for all those kids to be like, oh, that's the same tough girl I've run against the last 3 weekends. I know where she is. I know what to expect. And so that kind of makes it a little bit easier for, I think, some of those New England girls when they see each other and know, okay, there's my girl, and maybe like help push each other through the race.
And then for the rest of the team, obviously track season getting underway. The competition's in January, but practice, I'm sure, right now. So, I mean, it must be good to have something to go to for those runners who, coming off that disappointment, to stop thinking about it, right, a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the kids that were on that team that didn't make it to nationals really, really love track. So for them, just the shift of like, all right, well, I get to go to something I really love to do. Maybe I even love it more than I love cross country. So some certainly would be like, yeah, I'm like looking ahead to that. A lot of them are underclassmen, so you can, easily have a place to sort of channel some of that too. Like I have another chance to make it next year. I think, from a coach's standpoint, I have to say, all right, I have to change some things about our schedule that I don't really want to change, but I'm going to have to change in terms of last year. It would have been impossible not to select us because we went to pre-nationals and we did so well. Now it was at an expense, and it's not easy just to like get on a plane and go to Kentucky, but we're just going to have to, when we know we have really good teams, just make sure that some of that stuff happens. So it's impossible to not select us where we went out of region, and that should have been enough. But I think they want you to go out of region more, so we might have to just kind of change things up from that perspective.
Interesting. So they want to kind of get your name out there in a way, right?
Yes, but what's sort of confusing is it's not 100% transparent. They say, okay, well, your regional finish is your most important thing. We're like, okay, great, because we did 5th in our region, just like these other teams that were selected, and we had less points in a bigger region, and we beat RPI, who ended up being 10th in the country and 3rd in their region. So if we beat a 3rd place team in a region, that should be enough. Right. People who aren't on the outliers is sort of, the West for sure is hard, the South for sure, where we are in New England, being in Maine, it's 5 hours to get out of our region. Some of these other regions just intersect each other with a little, hop, skip, or jump over a state line, or not even over a state line. So they're beating other teams that are making it to nationals because they have meets against each other more often. So that's really kind of the trick of it. The other part is it obviously comes with expense. Yeah. And I'm not sure the NCAA is quite saying that, because then everyone's going to go like, what? We have to spend all this money? And then the athletic director. So it feels like a little bit of a mystery, but that's sort of where I'm taking it from here. So,
gotcha. What events can we expect to see Katherine run in track?
She certainly actually is one of those ones that looks forward to the 10K and the outdoor track, 25 laps. Not everyone is built for that. And then indoor, she would certainly run some 3Ks, but 5K would be the thing. And I think she might be able to take a run at our indoor 5K record. We haven't had somebody who has really only been a 5K runner indoor. Lots of times that person would also double as someone who's run the DMR. And so somebody like Jess last year, or Catherine Moore a couple years ago, or Callie Nixon has been more of that, like, hey, I can run that mile too. And so we've used them there. And Catherine really is much more of just a distance runner. And, she's fast, but she'll look for the 5 indoor and 10 and 5 as we get outside.
Great. So I believe Catherine's the second cross-country All-American you've coached here, or first?
No, she's the second.
She's the second. Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty cool now. I mean, it's the first in about a decade, right?
Yes. Yeah. The other one was a number of years ago, a really great runner. We had Katherine Moore, and what was fun about her is I think she wasn't even all NESCAC. I think she was like 16th at NESCAC, and then like 22nd at our regional, and then like 32nd in the country. So but she was a really good competitor, and it was just the worst cross country weather day, probably my second worst in my career. And so she was able to like sort of overcome on that day. But Katherine had a really great senior year. So this obviously bodes well. Oh, they're both named Katherine. Sorry. So the first Katherine. Yeah. So this is sort of exciting. We've had a lot of really, really good distance runners who I feel like have really taken off as they got to indoor and really sort of figured things out and gained a lot of confidence from cross country, but without like the big performance in cross country. So it's nice to be starting with a big performance in cross country and hopefully building on that.
The Bates basketball teams hit the road to start their seasons over the weekend. The women dropped a heartbreaker to Castleton on Saturday by a score of 76-75 at the Tyler Tip-Off Tournament. Then on Sunday, they fell at Smith 85-64. Senior Nina Davenport earned a spot on the all-tournament team with 31 points Saturday and her 12th career double-double Sunday. Meanwhile, the men's basketball team fell to Trinity on Saturday in a non-conference game before bouncing back to defeat Maine Maritime 72-69 in overtime on Sunday behind a career-high 24 points from sophomore Jeff Spellman. Head coach Jon Furbush shares his thoughts on the weekend.
If we can get our pace down, and I've talked a lot about pace with this team this year, and that's not just up the floor in transition. We want to play fast in the half court and apply pressure to teams' defenses by playing fast. So what that means is we want to cut hard, we want to sprint to our screens, and create as much separation so we can get our players going downhill off the dribble to either get a shot for themselves or a kick-out three. And I thought that we did that pretty good this weekend.
The Bates swimming teams swept Wesleyan and Trinity on Saturday at Tarbell Pool. Senior captain Riley Ewing won 3 individual races plus a relay for the Bates men's team, while senior captain Hope Logan had 2 individual wins and an impressive runner-up finish to lead the Bates women. For his performance, Riley Ewing is our male Bobcat of the week. Joined by our male Bobcat of the week, Riley Ewing here on the Bobcast, looking back at men's and women's swimming sweeping Wesleyan and Trinity right here at Tarbell Pool over the weekend. First of all, 2 teams plus Bates, so that's 3 teams in this area. What was that like? That's pretty crowded.
Definitely a very filled pool deck. We had a nice audience, though. There's plenty of people in the stands cheering us on, and there's room for the swimmers to get warmed up if they needed to. I think everyone had a good meet.
Absolutely. Well, you personally won 3 individual events. Were part of a victorious relay as well. I mean, you're part of a senior class here for the men's swimming team that's really changed the program almost, right?
Yeah, it's been crazy. Freshman year, we came in, we got our first relay to nationals. Me and Teddy Pender, who were freshmen at the time, are now seniors, and looking back over the past 4 years is incredible, just seeing how far we've come personally, but also seeing the other teammates we've had step up to the plate and also qualify for relays going to nationals. That's been something that's been truly inspiring.
Sure, and now for you personally this week, I know, Peter, 2 days for the swim team. Some students are off campus, not you guys.
No, it's quiet here. It's very quiet, but we like it. It's relaxing. There's plenty of downtime for us, and we're catching up on sleep. Hopefully some of us are catching up on any work that we have. And the practices have been good and very worthwhile.
And obviously you got the training trip coming up in December. Everyone loves that, right?
Yeah, training trip, we're already looking forward to it. It's only in a few weeks, so we're getting our bathing suits ready, our sunscreen ready. We're about to be outside in some nice warmer temperature, especially with all the cold here lately. It's going to be really fun going back there.
I believe you get a chance to square off with Williams, or is that just the women?
Yeah, Williams. We're both going to be, both men's and women's are going to be having a meet with Williams, which is always fun. It's a different meet. We do fun events, so we'll do some underwater 50s, and we'll do IMs where we switch up the order. It's usually a very relaxed meet, but it's fun to get in and compete with such a good team.
So underwater 50s, I can imagine what that is. You can't put your head above water? Or?
You get a breath at the wall if you need one, but fastest people won't go for any breath.
How do you swim that?
Butterfly kick, I think, is probably the best method, yeah. And if people want to do breaststroke streamline, they can do that, but you're going to be fastest doing butterfly kick.
Gotcha. Now, your specialty pretty much is the backstroke, although you do some other stuff as well, obviously. Why the backstroke has that been so successful for you think?
I ended up coming into college, I was mostly backstroke butterfly, and backstroke ended up really just taking off. I think I found the rhythm with the stroke, and being on my back is nice because I get to breathe whenever, so that's always been relieving. I ended up working on my underwaters a lot freshman year, and those ended up being one of the key things that came to such a huge time drop that freshman year. So backstroke kind of just naturally fell in place, and having that background in high school was obviously very well needed.
The training here, I can tell, it's intense for the Bobcats. For the first years, what do you tell them about what to expect? Because obviously high school probably wasn't this way.
Yeah, I mean, have fun with it. Yeah. They know that. Train hard, and we're surrounded by such a deep team that it's really easy to find motivation even when you're lacking some. So I think just telling the freshmen to stay positive and just show up to practice on time. Even if you're not in the best mood, you'll end up getting into a good mood. Someone's going to cheer you up, or someone's going to motivate you or push you, and you'll end up doing something good with practice no matter how you're coming into it.
Great. Last question for you. What are some of the goals you've set personally in your mind for this senior season?
Oh, I have some pretty high goals. I figure this is my last year. After 16 years of competing, I want to go out with a bang. So I'm hoping to get top 8 at nationals in both the 100 back and 2 back. And that's a pretty tall order considering that I've been top 16 once in the 100 back. But, yeah, this year I think I'm just more motivated. I did a lot of training over summer, and I'm feeling even better now than I've ever felt at the beginning of season. So figure set the goals high, the motivation will kick in, and being surrounded by such a great team is going to really help push me to get that top 8 in the end.
All right. Riley Ewing, our male Bobcat of the week. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, man.
The squash teams got their seasons underway with matches against Bowdoin and Connecticut College. On Friday, the Bates men defeated the Polar Bears for the 28th straight time, winning 9-0. Meanwhile, an undermanned Bobcat women's team won 7-2. Then on Saturday, the women fell 5-4 to Connecticut College, but the men won 9-0 again. Sophomore Graham Bonnell played at the number 2 position both matches and won twice by a count of 3-0. The NESCAC named Bonnell its men's squash player of the week, and he chatted with the Bobcast on the phone from his home in Connecticut.
Graham, first of all, a pair of 9-0 wins for the men's squash team. I bet you couldn't imagine a better start of the season so far, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely a great start of the season for the boys. Definitely valuable for the first years on the team to get some exposure to the college squash scene, and I'm happy that we were all able to get some wins.
All right, so you're a sophomore now, but you were a first year, just a year ago, and so when you first started with Bates, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make about college squash?
Yeah, so as a junior, all the squash I played was as an individual pretty much. So it was definitely really different coming to Bates and playing on a team. And just kind of the difference between like a team sport and individual sport, that was kind of a jump for me.
Obviously, you're competing against each other, though, during those challenge matches. Do you enjoy those, or are those just a lot of stress?
Yeah, the challenge matches are definitely – I definitely enjoy them. One thing with the challenge matches is some of the biggest competition that we face the whole year is each other. Like when I think about last year, I think about like a really tough challenge match I had with Guerin, as well as like the matches I had against other schools, Princeton and whatnot. So they're definitely memorable. They definitely get tense, but I really like challenge matches.
So Pat Cosquer mentioned to me that you trained very hard over the off season. You have a friend over at Dartmouth who you trained with. What was the process like? Is it just playing as much squash as possible, or is there a little bit more finesse to it, perhaps in terms of strategy and in terms of training?
Yeah, this summer I did train with Alvin Human. He's actually a neighbor of mine, and we've been playing for a while, but he's really good at squash, and he really helped me with my game. But one thing that Ahmed Hatada told me, he's also somebody who I've got to accredit some success to. He told me that in squash, it's not just one thing. It's not just having the good shots or having the good fitness. It's focusing on everything. So this summer I worked a lot to get my strength up. I put on some weight. I spent a lot of time by myself on the court working on my technique, and then I also spent a lot of time with Alvin working on just match play, just trying to get as many matches as possible and exposure to high-level squash. And I think that's what really helped me this season so far.
So right now you're playing the number 2 position. Was that your goal kind of? Everyone's goal is to move up the ladder, but are you surprised by the number 2? Because you were number 7 last year, but you're making a big jump here so far.
Yeah, well, so I finished the season last year at, when we were playing at Harvard for Team Nationals. I was playing at number 8. And I was able to get a win against Princeton there, but I really thought that this coming year, my sophomore year, I could do better, and I did set the goal of playing number 2 on the team to be my goal for over the summer. I don't know if that's where my final goal is, but I'm definitely happy to be playing number 2 this year. And it is a big jump, but I think that it's going well so far. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at the Squash Center, because you're one of the top 3, you get to play on one of the featured courts. Sometimes the glass court, sometimes the other one. But is that fun to have a big audience typically for most of your matches so far? Yeah, it actually is really nice playing on the glass court, just because it's like the exhibition court. You're under the lights. Everybody gets to see you. It just feels really cool, and it's a lot of fun. Does it change anything on the glass court compared to the other courts? Are there any similarities, differences that you've noticed?
Yeah, it actually is pretty different playing on the glass court than on a conventional squash court. One of the differences is the ball dies a little bit more. It's not as bouncy. So for somebody like Mahmoud Yusri, who hits a lot of drop shots, I think it's a little easier to have the ball die and go into the nick, which is where the wall and the floor meet. So you kind of have to think about that stuff when you're playing on those courts. Also, the lighting is different. So in some instances, it's easier to get the white ball lost in the white lights if somebody hits it high up. So just little things that you have to think about, but it's not too different.
Excellent. Well, you've only got a couple matches in December. They're both on the same day, on December 2nd, and they're both all the way up in up there at Vassar. I understand there's Garando has a connection there, and you guys are going to make a fun trip out of it, right? Yeah, we're going up to Vassar in 2 weeks, I think, a week from when we get back from Thanksgiving break. Yeah. We're playing Vassar and Haverford, and they're solid programs, but I think we should be looking to definitely get the win on those. Definitely our toughest competition will be coming in January, though. Right, yeah. What's December like? Because you get 2 matches under your belt in November, then now you just got to wait basically for an entire, more than a month after your December match to play again. I mean, that's got to be a little frustrating. Yeah, it is for sure. Although I see it as an opportunity to get a lot better. And I'm happy that I've been able to experience some success playing at number 2. But I definitely need to get a lot better before we're playing teams like Brown and GW and Middlebury and F&M. So I've got about a month and a half to 2 months where I can be like a completely different squash player just by doing the stuff I did this summer, practicing with Alvin. He's here for Thanksgiving break, training with my friend Mike Jones, who has really helped me up my game and my athleticism. So I just see it as an opportunity to get better. All right, sounds good. Well, Graham Bonnell, the NESCAC Men's Squash Player of the Week, thanks so much for joining us here on the Bobcast. Thank you, Aaron.
Squash head coach Pat Cosquer gives us an in-depth look at both programs as we look ahead to what should be an exciting season. Coach, first of all, the men keep up a tradition unlike any other. They've won 28 straight now against Bowdoin. How proud of you are that achievement, continuing it beyond the era of the 2 Ahmeds now as we enter a new era in Bates squash.
Who are you talking about? Yeah, no, it's fun. It's always fun to beat Bowdoin. It never gets old, as we alums say. I'm proud of the guys. I mean, the first match of the season to come out there away in a different building, different energy. And perform the way they did. I think they dropped 2 or 3 games total in the whole match. It's great. We have such a young group, and to be able to do that on the first day of the season or first match of the year is just really impressive.
And then Mahmoud Yusri playing at the number 1 position. What do you see from him so far?
Yeah, Mood works hard. He's a competitor. He's a fighter. He deserves it right now. We'll see what happens, Aaron. I don't know. I mean, I think that there are other guys. We have a lot of parity on our team, so I think there are some other guys that will be gunning for number one. But Mood is there, and he's strong, and he's playing well. Once he gets even more confident and in his own abilities and his fitness, his strength, he's going to be really hard to beat and a force to be reckoned with for the rest of the year.
And then you have Graham at number 2, a guy who played last year, but down the ladder as a first year, now way up there as a sophomore. Has he made a leap over the offseason? What have you seen from him?
Graham worked his butt off this summer. We talked in the spring before he left about, some of the goals that he wanted and wanted for the guys, for the team. And he just put his words into action this summer, put himself in the gym. He and Mahmoud and a couple other guys worked really hard in the offseason, fitness-wise and strength. With their strength and agility. And, he has a playing partner who plays at Dartmouth. And so he worked pretty intensively with his friend there this summer, which obviously paid dividends. And like I said, Graham is in charge of his own destiny at this point. And, I wouldn't count him out.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then you have a first year at the number 3. Tell us about him.
Yeah, Omar. Omar is the first year, and that's no question. Omar's the first year. He's a great kid. He came to us from Kent School via Cairo, Egypt, and he's just a great presence. He's full of energy and vigor and smiles all the time. And it's a good news, bad news thing because he's a first year and doesn't know any better yet, But once he starts to sort of harness his energy a little bit and direct it in different ways, he'll be really solid for us and really help the guys. Yeah.
Then 2 9-0 victories, one over Bonnell and one over Connecticut College. So it must be a nice confidence builder, especially for some of the younger guys playing down the ladder, right?
It is. As a coach, it sort of makes you a little bit nervous because you want to talk about getting better and working harder, but then the guys say, well, we just smoked them and just shut them out, And so it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. But the guys know that there's competition coming in here in January. The likes of Middlebury and GW and Williams and Brown and F&M, and we're going to have to play better. We'll have to be fitter. Everyone knows that. It's more just about doing it, doing things over the breaks to put the guys, to put themselves in positions to be fitter and stronger when it happens in January. And if it starts in January, it's too late. That's sort of our issue with winter sports in general, is that we go for a week off now in Thanksgiving break. In December, we have exams and, the holiday break. And so it's really 2-3 weeks off from squash. And then we come back and we have a week. And then we get, the heavy hitters of Middlebury and Williams and GW and the NESCAC schedule and all that. So it's really incumbent upon them to take their fitness and their work ethic to the next level while we're not watching. And that's, obviously the mark of a true athlete, right? The true champion is to work when no one else is watching. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It'll be a fun year.
Well, you're going to challenge both squash teams in a couple of weeks. Quite a long trip out to upstate New York, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun. We have some family there. Gan Rothenberg's grandparents live in Poughkeepsie. And so we've never been to Vassar, I don't think, as a team, or at least since I've been here, which was a long, long time ago. And so we, that'll be a fun trip for us. It's always nice to play some different teams. We're all friends in college squash, so we're friendly with their teams, and obviously have classmates in common and all that. But we're also going to take some time, have a really nice dinner on Saturday night. We're going to the Roosevelt Library and Museum. Josh McIntosh is joining us. Jason Fine is joining us.
Nice.
Some parents, some alums, and so that'll be nice to sort of relax in a different setting. Guided tour of the museum and a nice dinner after the matches too. So just a different setting for the team and to spend time with friends, family, and alums is just always nice for us.
Let's talk about the women's team. They opened up at Bowdoin also with a 7-2 win over the Polar Bears. And you had a player win at number 9 who has literally never played squash before. Tell us about her, how she joined the team. I know she plays women's lacrosse. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, Izzy joined us, I think it was last weekend, maybe 6 or 7, 8 days ago, as we speak now. Yeah, we've had low numbers. This has been an issue from the women's side for a while now. There are about 12 or 13 different reasons that we could go into in a different time as to why this has all happened. But yeah, we've always had sort of low numbers, especially in the fall when kids are abroad and away from school. So we were recruiting on campus, and we found a couple. We found Rhea and Izzy, and Rhea wasn't able to make the trip to Bowdoin last weekend. And so Izzy stepped in at 9. I think we coached her up for about 4 or 5 days before that match, slapped a uniform on her, and then she won her match, which I don't think I've ever seen before, to be perfectly honest. But she is an athlete. Brett Allen is lucky to have her on his team. And, she's friendly with a lot of our team members, and she worked her butt off. She was really focused. She's an athlete, so squash is challenging, but if you see the ball and you go after it and you hit it, you always have a chance if it hits the front wall. So that's what she did. She did it for 4 or 5 games, and it worked. And so she beat Bowdoin, which is pretty cool. Right, very cool.
Absolutely. So, have you ever had to do that before? Actually, go out and recruit on the Bates campus?
Unfortunately, yes, we have.
Okay.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we, Brett, if you're listening, we've been lucky to have a couple of Brett's women's lacrosse players play at the number 8 and 9 spots over the past 7 or 8 years, and generally they do pretty well, to be perfectly honest. So Izzy has some tennis experience. She had taken a lesson or 2 in squash before. She went to Choate where there's squash. She had some friends on the team, as I said, who had probably hit with her a few different times just casually. But if you asked her if she was going to put on a uniform for the Bobcats and play against Bowdoin on a Friday night under the lights for her first match, she probably would think that you're crazy. So, but it worked out well, and the women won, which is always nice as well. We lost to them 2 years ago under similar situation, actually, similar numbers and all that over there. So it was nice to go over there to Brunswick and beat them for the first match of the year.
And then the team as a whole, obviously a tough, close one, 5-4 against Connecticut College. Yeah. You have 4 players there at the top who look like they're going to be pretty tough to beat throughout the entire season. And then you have Christina coming back in January, and also Molly, Katie, and hopefully Eliza add even more depth. So you look at what that team has potential to be come January. I mean, other teams in NESCAC better watch out, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's again a double-edged sword. I mean, when you lose, we're not used to losing very often, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't taste good. It hurts. It's disappointing. But this one needs to be sort of taken in context. Yeah. We were missing 4 starters, and we had some inexperience at the bottom of the ladder, and it is what it is, right? I mean, this is not, from a coaching standpoint, this is not an effort issue. This is not a preparation issue necessarily. We tried our hardest. We went with who we had, and we came up a little bit short, and that's as far as it goes, really. It still hurts, and it especially hurts that we have to sit on it for about 7 or 8 days over break. But I trust that when we come back next Monday, we'll get back on it. We have 4 or 5 days of practice until we go back and play Vassar and Haverford and get back on the match, get back on the court to play. I know the women will be eager to prove that they did not, that this is not their ranking or their level of play. And it is what it is. Con College came in here, played really well. They had a good weekend up here in Maine, and I think I would be a little bit more upset if they just didn't, if we didn't play well, or if we weren't prepared, or if we weren't, taking them seriously, or any of that stuff. But that's not what happened. What happened was we played just about the best we could with who we had, and it didn't go our way. And that's how it goes. That's athletics, that's sports, that's squash. You're right. We have 4 starters that come back in January. Katie and Maeve, who have stepped in as first years to play 3 and 4 this year so far, just look incredible, and they're fit and they're focused, and they're great kids, and they're just amazing additions to our team. I suspect that they'll drop down a little bit when Christina and Molly and Katie and Eliza come back in January, which will make us even stronger. And we'll look to beat Middlebury and Williams again. I mean, that's really what we look to do in this program, is to finish second in the NESCAC behind Trinity, who eventually sometimes goes on to win the national championship or finish second or third in the country. So that's our goal, to finish second in the NESCAC and top 10 in college squash. Top 3 in Division III. Those are our goals, and I think they're definitely attainable if everyone comes back healthy and strong and with the desire to win. I think that the loss against Conn College is what it is, and it will only make us stronger in the end.
Tell us a little bit more about Lutza there at number 1. Has she shown an improvement already from her great first year?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. She's missing some of her key teammates in practice, so to pick up the pace a little bit, nothing against any of the women that are at practice, but to pick up the pace a little bit of practice is challenging. It's sort of a mental thing more than anything else. But she's worked hard. She's fit. She's super focused. She knows that she's the leader, one of the leaders on the team. So she's really embraced that role, and that's a process. She's getting there too. I mean, she's still, she's only a sophomore, so so she's still catching her stride with that whole thing too. But she's a beast. I mean, Lutza works really hard. She's physical. She's aggressive. She's passionate, and she's exactly who you want at number 1. I mean, you want to know that your number 1 is going to be the strongest player out there and the strongest competitor. And so far, that's what she is, and I don't see that, I don't see that diminishing at all this year. And she loves it, she loves being up there at the top and taking the best player on and taking her down. So we're lucky. We're really lucky. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, really quality players this year when everyone's healthy, and even 8, 9, and 10. I mean, we're going to have one of the best teams that we've had in a while. Once it all comes together. It might not come together until January or maybe even February, but once it does, it'll be really formidable.
All right, Pat Cosquer, thanks so much for the update.
Thanks, Aaron. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, the basketball teams take center stage. They have a combined 5 games this week, with the men's home opener set for Sunday at 5 o'clock against the University of New England. That's next time on the Bates Bobcast.
Fight till the end of every game. Fight